Hello, my name is Matthias, and welcome to the FPL Scope and my team selection video for Game Week 13. We have a lot of things to get through. I'm going to go through my score from Game Week 12. I'm going to go through the Manager of the Week from Game Week 12 as well in the FPL Scope Mini League. I'm going to look at the free hit draft that I made for Game Week 12, which was not that good, but we're going to try to make another free hit draft for Game Week 13, as we always do on this channel and in this team selection video. Then we're going to take a look at the Manager of the Week again and his plans for Game Week 13 and what I would do if I was in his position. And then finally, we're going to take a look at my plans for Game Week 13 as well, where I've already made a transfer. That's going to be at the end of the video basically. But to start off this video, let's do a quick recap of Game Week 12. I already did a more in-depth recap of this past game week in the video that I posted on Tuesday, I think, where I made basically plans for the rest of 2024 for my own team and just gave you a closer look into what I'm planning to do for the next 6 remaining game weeks that we have in this year before we get into the new year. So if you want to check out that video, that's going to be in the description most likely, and you can check out my plans like for the long-term future as well in FPL. But yeah, I did talk about my Game Week 12 score there, and it's not really too much to talk about there. It was basically not the best game week, 56 points in total. I got a small red arrow down to 266k overall. And that was basically down to the captaincy choice, where I tried to punt on Palmer as captain rather than going with the template Salah captaincy pick. And I was sort of influenced by the decision the week before in Game Week 11 when I captained Bruno Fernandes and actually gained 3 points from Salah there. But this time around, I lost 11 points out from Palmer captain compared to Salah captain, and 11 points would have taken me up to 67 points, which would have given me a small green arrow as well. So yeah, fine margins there. But luckily I did the correct transfer. I was between buying Aït-Nouri and Digne, and I could say correct, but Aït-Nouri got 1 more point than Digne, but at least Aït-Nouri started. Digne didn't start, so that would give me more issues defensively if I brought in Digne, who is not a certain starter now that Aston Villa have so many tough fixtures and yeah, a lot of fixture congestion with the Christmas schedule and Champions League matches basically dominating their schedule. So yeah, happy that I brought in Aït-Nouri, and I'm even more happy that I decided to start Cunha and bench Raúl Jiménez, because I was close to doing the opposite. Just because Fulham had the home game, I thought Fulham were a pretty good home team and Wolves would struggle to score, but I did figure in the end that Raúl Jiménez played too many minutes in the international break leading into Game Week 12. So that was basically the deciding factor for me going with Cunha over Raúl Jiménez. But Jiménez started the game, had some pretty huge chances that he missed as well. Could have had a lot more points, could have been punishing me for benching him. But luckily he ended up with 2 points for me, and Cunha just maximized his chances absolutely for Wolves. Scored 2 goals, had an assist, 16 points, just a tremendous score all around from Cunha. So really happy about that decision, at least, because if I had benched Cunha as well, this game week would have been a disaster. But luckily I avoided a disaster, and now we're moving on to better and bigger things basically. So we're going to get to those plans at the end of this video. But first, let's take a look at the best manager of this past week from the FPL Scope Mini League, and that is KJ Barker, who ended up with 91 points. Did 1 transfer, Calvert-Lewin to João Pedro, and that got him 10 extra points because Calvert-Lewin blanked once again, as he usually does. And João Pedro was amazing once again, getting 12 points for this manager. And he was early on the João Pedro train, and now a lot of people will be joining him because of the 12-pointer that João Pedro had and the fixtures that he has as well. So yeah, but taking you through the team, he has Roya in goal, got 6 points from him, got 14 points, amazing point return from Pedro Porro against Manchester City. I don't think many people expected that. Pedro Porro has been a pretty popular player for most of the season, but his popularity has been going down. And now he actually provided the goods and got 14 points against Man City, which was really surprising. But yeah, scored a goal, kept the clean sheet. Fantastic score for Pedro Porro. Van den Berg as well, a really cheap defender that still is playing every single game for Brentford. There were rumors that he was going to be dropped, or like people were speculating that he would be dropped at some point, but he just keeps playing, and that worked out this past game week where Brentford got a clean sheet, and Van den Berg ended up with 6 points in total. Aït-Nouri with 2 points didn't really do much for KJ Barker either, like my team, but at least he captained Salah and got 26 points from him in total. He also had Palmer, who got 2 points, and Buemo with 3 points, kind of disappointing. Rogers with 2 points as well. As you can see, even the manager of the week doesn't have a full lineup of players scoring a lot of points, but he had the major important players in Cunha and João Pedro, both of them which is kind of rare to have both at this point in time. So that really helped him. 16 points from Cunha, 12 points from João Pedro, which was amazing. And that worked out even with Haaland, who takes up quite a lot of the budget, scoring only 2 points in the home game against Spurs, which was kind of surprising to me at least. But yeah, that's his team basically. On the bench, Fabianski, Lewis, Greaves, and Dibbling. Didn't really matter that much, that bench. He benched Lewis, which was the right play, and started Pedro Porro, which was, again, the right play. I think I would have probably started Lewis, which would have lost me 14 points in that instance, because I thought Man City would actually turn it up a level and beat Spurs, but they just lost 4-0. So yeah, Man City are just terrible lately, and I think getting off of those Man City players could be the best idea for this manager going forward. But we'll get to that eventually. Up to 494k overall KJ Barker is, which is really nice. That's already halving the rank, or like doing a lot better than last season's rank when he ended up 1.3 million. So I think he's in a good position, or she's in a good position. Shouldn't really assume from KJ that's a guy, but yeah, 500k at this point of the season is pretty good, and this game week was obviously a huge success as well. But the manager has used the wildcard in Game Week 7 and triple captaincy in Game Week 9. Not ideal use of chips so far, but yeah, that's just what happens sometimes. But at least for this game week in Game Week 12, the manager was the best out of the FPL Scope Mini League. And if you want to be the manager of the week and get featured on a video on this channel like KJ Barker just was, then you can join the FPL Scope Mini League with the league code hpxeri. And if you are the highest scoring manager in one particular game week, you'll get featured in a video just like KJ Barker just did right now. So yeah, that's KJ Barker's Game Week 12 score. We're going to get back to the Game Week 13 plans for KJ Barker as well. But first, let's take a look at the free hit draft for Game Week 12 that I made, which was not good, and then try to make a better one for Game Week 13 as well. So yeah, let's move on to that. So yeah, this is the free hit draft that I made for Game Week 12. And as you can see, 46 points is just awful, even worse than my own team that I had. Because I still made the same decision here to captain Palmer rather than Salah. And again, that is kind of unlucky. Palmer had a goal taken away from him from Madueke being in the way of the goal. Would have been a certain goal otherwise. And that goal would have probably given Palmer, like 9 or 10 points, so like 18 or 20 points in total, which wouldn't have been too bad compared to Salah. And Salah also was kept basically as a blank player all the way up until like the 60th minute against Southampton, and then he scored a goal from a Alex McCarthy mistake, and then he scored from a penalty, which was again a mistake from the Southampton defense. But that's not really unlucky. That is what you expect from a Southampton defense, where they don't even have Ramsdale and Jan Bednarek. So I should have recognized that before the game week and not been influenced by the decision the game week prior, where I captained Fernandes to great avail. And Fernandes didn't even look that good, or Man United didn't even look that good either in the following game, but that's not neither here nor there. But yeah, I had Dalot as my favorite differential defender in this free draft. He ended up with 2 points. Wasn't really as attacking as I expected him to be, and Man United still look kind of shambolic in general. They still need some time to gel, I think. But yeah, for the free draft, one of the bigger pluses to the team at least was Kelleher in goal, saving a penalty, getting 7 points. He still conceded the rebound, however, and didn't keep a clean sheet. But if he had kept the clean sheet there, he would have been a fantastic goalkeeper on the free hit. So it's basically him with 7 points, João Pedro in the team with 12 points. That is like the main positives from the team, but the rest of the team is just blanks all over, basically. Konate got injured, had to be subbed off, got 0 points. Dalot with 2 points. Man United didn't look that good. Digne was benched, got 1 point off the bench, which was terrible. Rogers got 2 points. Didn't really do much for Aston Villa. Smith Rowe got 1 point, got subbed off before 60th minute, so yeah, lost out on some points there as well. Palmer and Salah I've talked about already. Haaland blanking against City or against Spurs was surprising. Isak blanking against West Ham was even more surprising, because I thought he was going to be doing fantastically against West Ham, but he didn't really do much. He got a huge tifo before the game, a huge ovation before the game, but then Newcastle sort of laid an egg and struggled really badly at home to West Ham. So yeah, that was kind of surprising. But João Pedro with 12 points, at least. Vandenberg on the bench as well with 6 points. Should take that into account as well, I guess. But 46 points overall for this free draft is just not good enough. And I'm going to try to do better for next week. So let's take a look at my Game Week 13 free hit draft. So this week, I think it's actually a pretty good game week for a lot of players, and I feel like this team is pretty strong because the striking trio is actually looking pretty good. But yeah, I'm going to take you through the team, and then I'll talk about each individual player for each position, basically. So in goal, Bart Verbruggen from Brighton playing in Southampton at home. I think that's a really good fixture. I think Brighton will get a clean sheet finally. So I think that's a decent fixture to try to target in terms of defensive points. I think in general there's a lot of good defenders this week. I've benched Ola Aina against Ipswich at home, which is a good fixture, and Van den Berg against Leicester at home, which is a good fixture. Southampton, Ipswich and Leicester are all playing away from home, and those are the teams you want to target when it comes to clean sheets. Even Everton are playing away from home, and that's also what I'm done with Mazraoui and Man United. I've backed them once again, even though it hasn't really worked out the last 2 game weeks in terms of keeping clean sheets. But Mazraoui, I think, has looked really good under Amorim, especially in the game against Bodø/Glimt in the Europa League. He looked really good, and I think he has actually some attacking potential, even though he plays as like a right wing or right centre-back role. I think he's going to be a decent player, and I think the clean sheet potential is the highest actually against Everton, because they just have really struggled to score, and I can't really see them scoring at Old Trafford either. I also have Gabriel Magalhaes in defense, because I think he is just one of the best defenders to have currently in FPL. West Ham should be a team that Arsenal beat quite easily, but I said that about Newcastle as well, so maybe it's going to be more of a struggle for Gabriel. But he's always a threat to score, like he did against Sporting in the Champions League. And obviously Arsenal always have a decent chance of keeping a clean sheet as well, so I think Gabriel is a pretty good player to have this week. But he is a slight injury doubt. I gotta at least mention that, because he might not make the game, but I think it's pretty certain that he's going to start. And if he doesn't start, if he's out for the game, I'm going to get Ola Aina against Ipswich at home anyway off the bench, so that works out as well. I also have Aït-Nouri against Bournemouth at home. I'm just going to keep backing Aït-Nouri because he is such an attacking player. He can get those 15 pointers, which are amazing to get in defense, because he can score and keep a clean sheet at the same time. But lately hasn't really been scoring goals offensively, and Wolves, they kept 1 clean sheet that he got against Southampton not too long ago, so that could happen again. But Bournemouth isn't the easiest match, I guess, so yeah, maybe you want to start Will Aina or someone else rather than Aït-Nouri, but I just think his attacking potential is a lot higher than someone like Aina, for example. In midfield, Salah captain, pretty easy captaincy choice for me, I think, this week. This is probably going to be the reversal of last week. I did this previously in the season. I did captain Saka when most people captain Haaland, and it didn't really work out that much. At least Haaland blanked back then, but I got like 1 point extra from Saka. And then the next week, I switched my captaincy from Saka to Haaland, and Saka had that 16-point haul, and Haaland didn't really do much at all that game week. So I'm sort of fearing for the same thing now that I went with differential captain in Palmer last week and got punished for it, and now I'm going to go back to the template captain in Salah, and then I'm going to be punished for it again, because I think Palmer has a decent chance of doing really well against Aston Villa, and that's why I've added Palmer to the team at least, and he's my vice captain as well. Playing against Aston Villa at home, that might actually suit him better than the match against Leicester last time around, because Aston Villa are going to attack most likely, and that's going to suit someone like Palmer, who can score goals in those matches, as he's done in the past against Wolves and Brighton this season. He's been amazing, and that could happen again in this game against Aston Villa. Then we have Saka against West Ham. I think he has really good form. Arsenal are in really good shape as well. I think you just need to back Arsenal at this point, especially against a team like West Ham, who have struggled really defensively, let in some pretty huge chances against Newcastle as well, despite keeping the clean sheet. So I think Arsenal have a decent chance of scoring a lot of points or scoring a lot of goals in that game. And Saka is obviously the focal point of the Arsenal attack in that game as well. The final midfielder that I have is James Maddison, who I was really impressed by last time around. And Maddison is one of those form players who, when he scores, he basically keeps it going. He also got a rest, I think, in the Europa League match that Spurs had in midweek. So I think he's going to be nice and fit and ready to play Fulham at home, which is a decent fixture as well. So I think he is a pretty standout differential player. I think he's going to be in pretty good form now. So I think he's a really nice differential guy to have for a free hit draft if you're looking to free hit. But as I'm saying that, I don't think free hitting is that good to do in like a regular game week like this, because it's really hard to predict. Like we saw last week in game week 12, it can go really badly wrong. So I prefer to use it in a blank game week, for example, where you can just assure yourself of a decent score compared to the rest of the players that you're or the managers that you're playing against. So I wouldn't really advise using your free hit, but Maddison is one of those upsides, I guess, to using a free hit. But it's tough to gauge Spurs because against the lesser teams so far this season, they really struggled, and against the best teams like Man City last time around, they've actually beaten them. So kind of hard to gauge Spurs players currently, I think. But my striking trio, I'm pretty damn happy about. I think it's a really strong trio of players. You have Vissa against Leicester at home. You can see I've benched Mbeumo against Leicester at home. Usually he would be a mainstay, like a lock in this team over Maddison, for example, because that should be a really good fixture for Mbeumo, and he's been good earlier in the season, but lately Mbeumo has just struggled a bit, and I think it's more about Wissa in the Brentford attack currently. He's in more central positions, and Mbeumo is more like on the side. Hasn't really impressed me the last few game weeks, but then again, we said that with Solanke not too long ago when he had a really dry spell of games, and then he had like a huge 16-point swing. So I think Mbeumo could still be a really good player, but I just don't have enough confidence to start him. But I do have a lot of confidence to start Wissa because he's getting huge chances every single game week, it seems like, for Brentford, and we know that he can score a brace in any particular game. So I think he has a decent chance to score against Leicester at home as well. Then we have Cunha against Bournemouth at home. Cunha is just in too good form to ignore right now. You basically need to have him in your team, or like on a free hit draft at least. So against Bournemouth at home, I think that's a decent fixture as well. We saw João Pedro get a goal and an assist against Bournemouth last time around, and I can see Cunha doing the same in this game week. And speaking of João Pedro, he plays against Southampton at home, which is a fantastic fixture, obviously one of the best fixtures in the league. So I think he is a really easy player to target this week. He's really cheap, so most people should be able to get him. And he has an outstanding fixture. He's actually a pretty decent like differential captaincy choice as well, because I think João Pedro and Cunha have shown that they are basically too good for the teams that they're playing at currently. So yeah, I think João Pedro is a really good pick this week. On the bench, I've gone pretty cheap as well because there are some really good, nice cheap players. I've talked about some of them already. Fabianski as my goalkeeper. It doesn't really matter who's your bench goalkeeper because Verbruggen is going to play most likely. I think Onana is basically my second favorite goalkeeper to choose from because Everton I don't think are that good offensively. So I think he's going to be having another pretty good game week. And we know Man United aren't the best defensively either. So maybe he's going to get a lot of shots that he will save as well. Probably a couple big chances from Calvert-Lewin that he'll save. On top of that. So I think Onana is actually a decent pick, but I don't have enough money in the bank to have him in this free draft, so I went for Fabianski instead, who's at least going to play in the case of emergency if Verbruggen doesn't play for some reason. And Mbeumo I already talked about. I think he's going to be a really good player this game week, but I just don't have enough confidence in him after the last few game weeks where he's struggled a bit. Lion I think is a good player against Ipswich at home for Nottingham Forest, and then Van den Berg, who got a clean sheet last time around. I think he can get a clean sheet another time now, even though Leicester have a new manager in Ruud van Nistelrooy most likely, but he's not been confirmed yet, I think, so maybe he won't be the manager for that game, so who knows. But Van den Berg is a decent bench player anyway. So that's it for the free hit draft for Game Week 13 basically. Let's take a look at how the manager of the week stacks up to that free hit draft and how close his team is to this draft and what he can potentially do this game week. So yeah, moving on to KJ Barker, he has the most important players in Salah, Palmer, Cunha, and João Pedro, I think, and Mbeumo is still in this team as well, so a lot of the same players that are in the free hit draft that I just presented to you guys. He also has Van den Berg, who I had on the bench, so I think he can get a lot of points. He can start him. He also has Nouri at home to Bournemouth, which I think is a good player. Pedro Porro against Fulham at home, that could also be good. He's offensively minded, especially the way Spurs set up last time around with Kulusevski on the right and Maddison in the middle. There's going to be less congestion on the right-hand side with Johnson not playing, and I think that could be the same case this time around as well. Raya in goal against West Ham. I backed Gabriel, so I would back Raya as well, I guess, in terms of keeping a clean sheet. So he's also a really good player. So I think overall this team is looking really good. There's just one big flaw with it, I guess, which is the big Norwegian striker, Haaland, who just has struggled a lot lately and playing Liverpool at Anfield, which is one of the tougher games to play in. So yeah, I think Haaland out is basically something that a lot of managers are looking to do, but for this manager, he already has Cunha and João Pedro, the two main guys to bring in. But I think Nicholas Jackson could also be a really nice differential player for this game against Aston Villa, and for the long term, I think Jackson is going to be looking really good as well. Selling Haaland for Jackson will also give this manager some money in upcoming game weeks to bring in the likes of Bukayo Saka, for example, potentially bringing in Trent Alexander-Arnold in game week 15 as well, which would be a really nice move. So I think the cost cutting from doing Haaland to Jackson will also benefit the team on top of getting more points this game week, because I think Jackson has a better chance of scoring against Aston Villa than Haaland has against Liverpool away. So yeah, all in all, I think this manager is in a pretty good position. has a pretty weak bench, which is the one thing I think you should sort of try to fix in the future, and that goes a long way if you get a lot of money from selling Haaland to Jackson. But if you want to keep Haaland, if you want to be differential and keep him because you think he's going to start scoring eventually because he keeps getting chances, then you could look to do something else. You could potentially sell Greaves, I think, and get a pretty good defender. I don't know who exactly you would target there. Maybe someone like Masraoui, for example. Maybe he could be a good choice if you have enough money for that. 4.8 you would have to replace Greaves with. So yeah, any decent defender. Milos Kerkis is another one who could be really good. That could be another option for you if you don't want to sell Haaland. But I think selling Haaland is viable at this point because he needs to score a lot better than he has done so far to basically be enough for that 15.1 million price tag that he has, because he has just not been performing lately at all. So yeah, I think you're in a good position, but probably would sell Haaland. But if I was against selling Haaland, then there's other ways to improve the team as well. But I think selling Haaland can give you those players, like I said, Saka, Trent Alexander-Arnold, which I think are going to be really good in the upcoming game weeks. So yeah, that's my suggestions for this team. Now let's take a look at my own team and what I plan to do. And I've already done my transfer, and that is Raul Jimenez to João Pedro. Did it before the price rise, now leading into Friday, as I'm recording this Friday morning. And I think João Pedro, like I mentioned previously, is going to have a really good game week at home to Southampton. I think that's just a can't-miss prospect, basically, and I think it makes a lot of sense to bring him in to your team, especially for me with Raul Jimenez, who's been both lacking in terms of point production, and also he has really tough fixtures coming up as well. So I think João Pedro is just a much better player for the foreseeable future, pretty much. But yeah, taking you through the team, I have Sanchez in goal against Aston Villa at home. Don't really have high hopes for him because Chelsea are really bad defensively, but he's the best I have. I can't really start Fabianski against Arsenal, so Sanchez is what I have to choose from. In defense, I have both Ait-Nouri and Gabriel, who I think are going to be doing really well this week because I had them in the free draft. So I think obviously they have a good chance of both either scoring or keeping a clean sheet, or potentially doing both. So I think they are pretty good players for this game week. And Mykolenko against Man United away, which is kind of going counterintuitive towards me having Bruno Fernandes because they are playing against each other. But I don't know. I have sort of more faith in Everton keeping a clean sheet than Man United doing something offensively at this point. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully one of those players does well, or ideally Mykolenko plays 60 minutes, gets subbed off and gets the clean sheet points, and then Man United score a lot of goals towards the end with Bruno Fernandes. That would be my ideal scenario. But yeah, I think Mykolenko is just the best defender that I have out of him, Lewis, and Greaves. So yeah, I just got to start him against Man United and hopefully get some of those points that I've left on the bench the last few game weeks. Yeah, like I said, with the free team, I also have Salah captain and Palmer in the team as vice captain. I think that's the way I'm going to lean towards. I don't think I'm going to change that. I learned a valuable lesson last time around that you don't really back against Salah, and I think against Man City at home is a fixture that's looking a lot better than expected, actually. So I think my hope was kind of last week in captaining Palmer that he was going to haul and have a really huge game, and then a lot of people would go from Salah captain to Palmer captain in game week 13. Because I think that if Palmer had hauled last week and Salah would have had a less high score last game week, I think Palmer would have been the runaway most popular captaincy choice this game week. But since Man City lost 4-0 as well, and they look really susceptible to conceding goals like they did in the Champions League, conceding 3 goals in 15 minutes, I think a lot of people have gone to Salah as captaincy choice, which I think is a good idea because Salah has traditionally been good against Man City, and this is the weakest Man City team Salah has probably ever faced in terms of defensive value, at least. So yeah, I still think I'm going to go with Salah captain. Pretty certain about that, 90% certain most likely. I'm going to captain him and vice captain Palmer, but I have some fears that it's going to bite me in the ass again like it did with Saka earlier in the season when I went with him as differential and then switched back to Haaland the game week after, and both times it sort of didn't work out. So that could happen, but yeah, I quite like both players at least, so I have that going for me at least. Bruno Fernandes, I did mention a bit in the Mykolenko talk, and I think he hasn't really looked that good under Amorim so far, but maybe they will learn quickly. Maybe they'll be looking a lot better. They scored 3 goals at least against Bodø/Glimt in the Europa League. Fernandes didn't really take part in that at all, but he's the penalty taker, obviously, so that could help him. And if he gets a goal in that game, he most likely gets bonus points as well, because I don't think there's going to be a high-scoring game. So, yeah, quite like Bruno Fernandes in general, but I don't really like what I've seen from him and Man United since Amorim took over. I think he looked better under Van Nistelrooy, actually. But yeah, the new system for Amorim is going to take time, so I think he's going to come good eventually. But that just doesn't line up with my team, unfortunately. But yeah, Mbuemo has been really disappointing lately in terms of production in general. He has barely created any chances or been at the forefront on getting any chances, but I think Leicester at home, kind of like with the Solanke thing that I brought up earlier, he could have a massive game week and give me a huge boost in that regard. But most people have Mbuemo anyway and are going to start him, so I don't think he's that big of a differential anyway. But yeah, I think he can do well in this game week, but he most likely is on borrowed time in my team. I think both him and Fernandes are people that I'm looking to sell long term. Like I said in the video previously in the week where I went through the future game weeks, I think I'm looking to sell both of them, but they could potentially change my mind if they do really well this game week and they look a lot better than they have for the past game week at least. Up front, I have Watkins against Chelsea. I think Watkins is still a decent differential player to have. I'm not going to sell him. I obviously have a lot of money in the bank still, and I don't really have a need to downgrade him at the moment. He also has some really good fixtures in game week 14 and 15 that I'm looking forward to, and I think he can do well against Chelsea as well. But there is some potential that he's going to be benched because he played, obviously, again, a lot of minutes in the Champions League in a grueling game against Juventus, but Watkins usually plays. He is usually one of those players that plays 90 minutes every single week, and it doesn't really matter for him. But he could be subbed off early, at least, for John Duran, who's still a really good striker. But yeah, Chelsea away, decent fixture. I expect Chelsea to concede, but again, I'm sort of having two players going up against each other in Watkins against Sanchez. So hopefully Sanchez can get a penalty save and Watkins can go mad and score a couple goals on top of that. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. But then you have Cunha and João Pedro now with the transfer of João Pedro in. I think I'm in a really good position having both of those players. Happy with that. I'm really happy that I've had Cunha the last few weeks and I didn't bench him last game week, for example. So yeah, quite happy that I have that in store for my team, basically. On the bench, not really too many good players. Fabianski against Arsenal. It's going to be a tough game for him. And then we have Rodgers against Chelsea away. He could do well in that game. He scored a goal in the Champions League that was disallowed at the end against Juventus. Really should have scored that goal, but again, showed how he's really good at being in the right positions in the box for set pieces and stuff as well. So I think Rodgers is still an underrated player in FPL who I don't really like to bench too much, but I don't think there's any other player that I would bench in the attack for me. It would be Watkins, I guess, but he's more of a differential, and he's also the striker for Aston Villa, so I have more faith in him scoring against Chelsea than I do for Rodgers. But I think both players could do well against a pretty weak Chelsea defense. So benching Rodgers isn't the best feeling, but I think this is one of those game weeks where you can do it because he has a pretty tough fixture on paper at least. Rico Lewis, I just don't have any faith in him, and then there's rumors that he's not going to start even against Liverpool, so hopefully it doesn't because I'm going to bench him. Assuming Gabriel plays, I don't need him anyway. And then I have Greaves as backup, who should be back to play and ready to play now. He wasn't featured last time around in Game Week 12. He wasn't even on the bench for Ipswich, but he's on his way back into full fitness, which could be good against Nottingham Forest, who aren't the best attack either in the league. So yeah, but I'm probably not going to have to rely on him in general. But yeah, that's pretty much my plans for Game Week 13. If you want to look into my further plans for Game Week 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, I've gone through those plans in the video earlier in this week, so check that out if you haven't already. Hope you liked the video, hope you subscribe to the channel and stuff. All of that good stuff would be really nice. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for watching and see you next time. And I hope you have a good Game Week 13, just not quite as good as I have, most likely, or hopefully. So yeah, with all that in mind, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.